Hello and welcome to Raider HQ After Dark. I'm your host, Raider. And this is a more focused follow up to my video that I did today on the VFW and their total lack of threat assessment. And the reason why I'm doing this video is because I want to explain why I feel and why I believe the way that I do. So for me, I see that the actions by the Washington Post and the actions by Lieutenant Dan are too coincidental to be a coincidence. And I personally see a little bit of psychology going on here. So, what do I mean? There's this kind of political psychological technique that I learned it a different way, but it's called the door in the face technique. And basically, what it is that the person manipulates the audience into getting what they want by first making a completely unreasonable demand that the audience will reject on its face. And then they will come up with a follow up request that is a lot more modest, that in comparison to the first request seems very reasonable. But if the second request was the initial request, it might have originally been denied. So the psychological aspect of it is that you're actually preying upon the audience's need to want to just not say no. They want to compromise, they want to meet somebody halfway, and they want to set that kind of um, disparity between the two asks. One is extremely unreasonable, the second one is more reasonable, and they're more likely to say yes. Now, why do I think that the door in the face technique was applied here, and how was it applied? So I think that the door in the face technique was applied because the Washington Post presented the more extreme request. Now, request might not be the right word, but they created a circumstance to where they're saying that VA disability is fraud and veterans should not get disability, kind of thing, is the general gist of what they said. And they want to, they're posing questions like, should there even be disability? Because, working and this and that and the other, which is an unreasonable thing. Everyone has unilaterally taken the Washington Post behind the woodshed and spanked them on the bottom for this. But the reason why I say that this technique is here is because this particular thing is unrelenting. And you ask yourself, why is it unrelenting? It's unrelenting, in my opinion, because it's trying to create this we should take the benefits away, which opened the door to the congressional hearing. Now, every single person in that congressional hearing denounced, well, minus one, Blue Falcon, denounced the Washington Post's position on this as being an unreasonable request. It's an unreasonable statement, an unreasonable comment. But, and just hear me out on this, Lieutenant Dan got a seat at the table. I've already mentioned this in multiple videos. How did he get a seat at the table? Well, my perspective is Lieutenant Dan is the more modest follow-up. He comes with a more structured approach that is beyond his educational capacity to come up with. And I'm just saying that generally because, it would be like me talking about nuclear physics. You'd ask, okay, do you have any background in nuclear physics? No, I don't. Then how did you come here? Who helped you with your homework on this, type thing. But Lieutenant Dan comes with a more modest approach that doesn't take all the benefits away. They just take most of the benefits away. In the name of helping us out, it'll make you better. We need some tough love in here, guys. We need to take them benefits and get you out there shoveling ditches and stuff without fingers and hands and arms and things. It's as God intended. So this is why I'm a little bit harder on the people that are going against this, is because I see the psychology in this. I see that the Washington Post is not a serious issue here because they're the unreasonable request that nobody will ever get behind. Nobody will ever get behind that. But here comes Lieutenant Dan with a more modest request that the congressmen are actually saying, hey, send me your request. I'll take a look. Let's take a look at it. There's a reason why the door in the face technique exists, is because depending on what's being asked, how it's being asked, and who the audience is, it has a higher probability of working. That's why Lieutenant Dan is the one that asked it. This was set up perfectly. And you can say I'm being a conspiracy theorist right now, but I find it interesting that I'm doing air quotes, you can't see me, study was done by Lieutenant Dan that just so happened to fit with this narrative. It just so happened to fit with all this stuff. And the timing is impeccable. His ability to get a seat at the table, at the table bowl, at the table is impeccable. I can't, it almost seems planned. So part of the door in the face technique that allows it to work is if you don't know what's going on, if you don't realize the psychological principles behind, that you feel more compelled to honor a more modest follow-up request inherently, especially if you're not an advocate for veterans. If you're a senator, you might go, well, that makes a lot of sense, because they have to make decisions like this. What's the lesser of the evils type thing, where they should make no decision and be like, everything is fine. But we didn't hear that. We heard it on the introduction, but after Lieutenant Dan spoke, we didn't. I mean, Duckworth came out swinging, fair enough, but that's it. Everyone else, including the VFW, just sat there and let the more modest follow-up request be taken at face value. It's basic psychology, guys. That's why I'm concerned, is because nobody's identifying this for what it appears to have been. This is orchestrated. And you know what? I think until Lieutenant Dan's thing gets actually a spot, until it gets actually reviewed by Congress, I think we're going to keep hearing the Washington Post make the unreasonable request time and time again. They're going to double down, triple down, quadruple down, because the psychology demands there has to be a more extreme request in order for the more modest one to be taken seriously, to have unfair advantage to be accepted. So, because that's why I was like, well, the Washington Post keeps saying this stuff. Why? To their detriment, right? But there seems to be a means to an end here. And this is why the door in the face technique is why I think, and it could be other things, but it could be a modified decoy effect type thing. But I think the door in the face technique makes the most sense here. For policy change. Just Google it, look it up. Look up the door in the face technique. This is classic door in the face technique. So I just wanted to put it out there because it's like, hey, look, he's just going at the VFW for good reason, because they're not identifying the actual risk effectively. So I thought I'd take the time to actually explain why I believe that this risk exists, is because it's a commonly used political psychological technique to get their way. And we're just all, I shouldn't say all of us, not all of us are, but the majority of people are not pointing it out, not pulling the veil back and seeing what is really appears to be going on. But that's about all I got for you on this one. I'm going to put out some other videos today on maybe spread them out through the week on the answering the questions thing. That's about all I got for you today. So don't let, what's the message for today? Don't let your battle buddies be Blue Falcons, guys. Police each other. Don't let them be Blue Falcons. We got to fight this. We got to fight Lieutenant Colonel Falcon here, with all of our collective might. Not because we're all fraudsters or anything like that, but because he's wrong. His premise is wrong. His goals are wrong. They can give us jobs. I mean, we can expand the VA process to include, helping us get jobs after being out of the military. I'm not against that, but that has nothing to do with taking our benefits away. So anyway, that's about all I got for you today. Raider out.